Hello, everyone. This is Black Helicopter Radio. I'm the host, Ed Walker. I'll be with you for the next hour or so. Today's broadcast is on the 6th of October, 2010. The website is blackhelicopterradio.com. And today I have a very special guest, Mr. Jason Bermas, who needs no introduction, really. If you have even a remote interest in anything regarding the 9/11 truth or any of this the alternative media, I'm sure you recognize the name Jason Bermas, and we're going to be talking to him for the next hour or so. And what we're going to be talking about is many different topics, and we're going to be discussing several of the issues he brings up in his latest documentary, Invisible Empire, which is truly, if I could use one word to describe that documentary, it would be epic. I remember watching that, and I was really excited, just like most people get excited when they're going to see some mainstream blockbuster. I was just really, really excited to see that movie, and then when it came out, it did not disappoint. So, Mr. Burns, how are you doing today?
Good man. Thank you for the kind words on Invisible Empire. For those that don't know, that is my latest film, and it is a rather big picture film. The subtitle is A New World Order Defined, and I really feel like even the most skeptical person, if they sit down for 2+ hours and check out this film start to finish, it's pretty undeniable that there is a move towards world government, and this is not a benevolent world government. It is a consolidation of power by the elitists of this world to literally put the majority of the populace into slavery. And I know for some people that is very hard to accept, or they just can't come around to it. But I really feel like, with this generation, we don't read that much. Movies can do the job. And I have seen skeptics watch this film and change their minds tremendously.
Yeah, well, the impressive thing about this documentary is, so, a lot of people that study the New World Order, they've seen these old rehashed clips of George Bush saying it, and there's a handful of others people say New World Order, but the thing that really blew my mind, and still when I watch it, I'm just really impressed, is he has just clip after clip after clip after clip of these videos that weren't even on YouTube. So I mean, it's just New World Order this, New World Order that, global government, and it's just amazing how much that term was used, and that term New World Order I've discussed in past episodes of Black Helicopter Radio, is a term going way back, and he talks about that too, the history of the term New World Order, and yeah, I mean that's, oh, and I read a review, I remember, shortly after Invisible Empire came out, and I really liked it because it summed up the way I felt about the film. It's a documentary that is great for the choir, even if you know a lot about the push for global governments and this one world corporatist system. It's great for the choir, but it's also great for people who don't know so much about it. You kind of hit, you hit the best of both worlds with that, Jason, because it's, even if you like I said, if you have a a decent grasp of New World Order and global governance, there's still a lot in this documentary that will just blow your mind, because I mean, like, a lot of these clips weren't on YouTube. It's just a bunch of new information, and yeah. So how did you find so many clips of people talking about the New World Order?
Well, to be honest with you, I only used about a third of the clips that I had because I had to make a coherent movie that was around 2 hours in length. Um, really, I just did research. Anybody can do it. It's really what I've been doing and doing best since I started working on Loose Change. You can go to the C-SPAN archives. You can go to the Vanderbilt TV archives. You can put in keywords. You can look at other people's research that may not have a video but talk about a speech or a date. For instance, when I found out that George Bush had actually given a New World Order commencement address just around the same time of the YouTube clips that everybody is familiar with, like his State of the Union address, or after we had won the initial Iraq War, the Gulf War. He talked about these things, but he went to Maxwell Air Force Base and just gave a dissertation on the New World Order. Once I knew about that, I found the date. I found a place where I could get it on video archive. I then ordered that, and I go through literally hundreds of hours of separate videos, panels, news clips, you name it. But then on top of that, there is a history behind this term. Hitler wrote an untitled book that many people have dubbed My Order or New World Order. And not only the book, but Roosevelt talked about it. So I had already known, and I'd been to D.C., that they have that statue of Roosevelt where he denounces the New World Order. And I just basically found that speech, and it was in the National Archives, and it was online. We live in a period where if you have the motivation to look for something, the tools are there. I no longer have to go to the Library of Congress. It's online. I no longer have to go into the National Archives. They're online. So, even if I can't get a shorthand copy, I can order one online, and then it will come to me, and I'll go through all this stuff. And, even Samuel Zane Batten's book, this is something that really was just brought to light a few years ago. I went through the PDF file, and I was stunned that this vision was written by this supposed Christian man, especially because I would say the majority of the initial anti-New World Order people out there were indeed Christians. So this guy coming in at a Christian perspective, but then talking about a totalitarian world government where the people work for the state was very telling to me. So I wanted to tell that entire history. I wanted to bring in the modern players, but I wanted first and foremost to take this mystique away from the term New World Order, because whenever you bring it up to the average person, what do they tell you? Oh, George Bush talked about that once, or, that's a conspiracy theory. At the end of the film, I put in a montage of about, 55 to 100 prominent people, including, Cornel West, the CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt, and many, many others talking about this same term.
Yeah, I know it's incredible, and yeah, when you mentioned that book, I had never heard of that before in my life. And then also, I don't know if you're familiar with yeah, well, just the point that you bring up that it came from a Christian perspective is huge because I don't know if you're familiar with Alice Bailey wrote The Externalization of the Hierarchy, and she was part of the Theosophical movement, and she has a section in her book called New World Orders. And this is my broadcast yesterday. It was all about that, but so it's just funny that, the elite would choose a term New World Order that's associated with some of these fringe religious movements, and then also with Adolf Hitler. I mean, clearly you would think they would avoid anything even roughly associated with him. The fact that he was using this term "my order" and New World Order is associated with the Theosophical movement, which was a just kind of strange, the kind of the beginning of the New Age religion, and yeah, I think in the documentary Invisible Empire, it really does a good job of painting the reality and of the push for world government, the push for a new world order, and like I did a broadcast called Conspiracy Reality because I don't really like the term conspiracy theory because I mean, it is by definition a conspiracy. It's a group of a two or more group of people conspiring against the masses, and I read off quotes like, for example, Robert Mueller has a quote: "We must move as quickly as possible to a one world government, one world religion, under a world leader." Or Paul Warburg wrote, "We will have a world government whether you like it or not. The only question is whether that government will be achieved by conquest or consent." So hopefully with the documentary Invisible Empire, yeah, I mean, if you can watch that and then seriously say to yourself without lying to yourself that there is no push towards world government, I mean, you'd have to be just completely insane.
Well, I have to agree with you there. And actually, just today, I'm back in Oneonta, New York. It's upstate New York. I live like one exit up from the college, but I still keep in touch with, some of the younger guys that are in my fraternity. And even one of them is my roommate. But my friend was actually headed to his documentary class this afternoon. And what they watched last week was Why We Fight. It's a documentary on the military-industrial complex, and it starts with Eisenhower's farewell speech. So he started talking to me about that, and I said, you should really give a copy of my latest film to this documentary film teacher and see what he has to say about it. So, I've actually lectured up at that school at several different classrooms. I've screened Loose Change there. I've shown parts of Fabled Enemies even before Invisible Empire came out. About 2 years before I had gone to Texas, I spoke in front of a psychology course, and I laid out a lot of the things that I was going to be talking about there, just to show people that there are different perspectives and that you can't just trust what the media is pushing outright or what the news is saying or what the status quo is. You have to have discernment. You have to have critical thinking skills. And above all, you have to have the ability to listen to somebody or see evidence that you may not initially agree with or gravitate towards. You know, you have to have an open mind. And that's why I tell people to read and watch everything, but don't believe anything until you really researched it and looked into it for yourself.
Yeah, I couldn't have given any better advice myself. And as you briefly mentioned earlier, I just need to make sure if you are, if you have access to the internet, there is a very good chance you've seen the documentary Loose Change, which obviously Jason Bermas was the creator, one of the creators of that documentary as well. And I just have to make sure I ask Jason about this new footage that came out. I mean, because obviously 9/11 is one thing you just have extensive knowledge on, clearly with all the documentaries you've made and everything. But this new footage, did you see the new clip of the fireman talking about it was received from NIST under the Freedom of Information Act about the multiple explosions going off?
Absolutely. I reposted it on my Facebook just a couple of hours ago, and I'd seen parts of those clips on the news, mainly the blonde gentleman who's trying to make a phone call, presumably to his family. He got quoted several times. In fact, I think he's in Loose Change Second Edition and possibly the final cut. But obviously, they wanted to edit out the gentleman that clearly said that they were secondary explosions in the lobby and that these explosions occurred when? After the plane struck the building. Let me repeat that: after the plane struck the building. To me, it is case closed that explosives were in the World Trade Center. Folks, if you get my DVD, Fabled Enemies, or you just go online and look for the extras, Anthony Santalamacia, who was William Rodriguez's supervisor at the time, corroborates all of Willie's testimony that, again, there were explosions in the basement levels prior to the plane strikes. We could go into the molten metal. We could go into the squib points. We could go into the fact that the firefighters actually radioed down from the 77th floor and said that they could put the fire out with two hand lines just before it collapsed. We could go into the video footage of the lobby when the firefighters arrived, and it was clear that explosions had taken place there. I can go on and on and on and on. We have people who worked for FEMA, such as Ken Holden, talking about the molten metal that was dripping from Building 6. And of course, we have the firefighters talking about the lava-like substance that was traveling down channel rails underneath the rubble. Again, look into it for yourself. Don't believe Jason Bermas. I'm heartbroken that the World Trade Center attacks is basically an international intelligence operation for world government and domination over all people. It's domination in the sense that we will go over to the Middle East and we will kill brown people in the name of freedom. And then we will come back to this country and set up a police state through Homeland Security and a prison planet police grid. This is what it is. We are in a cyber technic era where now it's okay to tap phones and just not call it phone tapping. I mean, again, watch Invisible Empire. We show you that for years, AT&T and all of the other telecommunication companies are giving over all of your data, your cell phone, your regular phone, your internet connection to the NSA through Norris Insight Systems. Please check out the facts yourself.
Yep, I mean it's there's so much information out there. It's absolutely incredible that people could still, they'll know these things. You'll tell them these things very clearly. Or for example, I would show people that video of the BBC reporter talking about World Trade Center 7 collapsing as you see it behind her. She got the script too early, and people still will rationally, they just don't want to accept the truth because I think if they accept that 9/11 was an inside job, that's going to totally change the way they look at their world. It's going to make them admit that they were basically brainwashed sheep. I mean, that's the last thing they want to do. So they will rationalize the most obvious inconsistencies in the story. And at the very least, if people won't admit that it was a controlled demolition, we could go into the evidence of of foreknowledge just extensively. At the very least, people should be able to admit that they, let it happen and to pursue their globalist agenda,
Well,
because
Ed, that is why I made Fabled Enemies, because Fabled Enemies doesn't talk about controlled demolition whatsoever. It doesn't talk about any of the physical anomalies of 9/11. It doesn't talk about Shanksville, Pennsylvania. It doesn't talk about the Pentagon strike. What it does do is it clearly shows that the hijackers were.
Yeah, well, the impressive thing about this documentary is, so, a lot of people that study the New World Order, they've seen these old rehashed clips of George Bush saying it, and, there's a handful of others people say New World Order, but the thing that really blew my mind, and still, when I watch it, I'm just really impressed, is he has just clip after clip after clip after clip of these videos that weren't even on YouTube. So, I mean, it's just me of this, the alternative media. I'm sure you recognize the name Jason Bermas, and we're gonna be talking to him for the next hour or so. And what we're gonna be talking about is many different topics, and we're gonna be discussing several of the issues he brings up in his latest documentary, Invisible Empire, which is truly, if I could use one word to describe that documentary, it would be epic. I remember watching that, and I was really excited, just like most people get excited when they're going to see some mainstream blockbuster. I was just really, really excited to see that movie, and then when it came out, it did not disappoint. So, Mr. Burns, how are you doing today?
Good, man. Thank you for the kind words on Invisible Empire. For those that don't know, that is my latest film, and it is a rather big picture film. The subtitle is A New World Order Defined, and I really feel like even the most skeptical person, if they sit down for 2+ hours and check out this film start to finish, it's pretty undeniable that.
Hello, everyone. This is Black Helicopter Radio. I'm the host, Ed Walker. I'll be with you for the next hour or so. Today's broadcast is on the 6th of October, 2010. The website is blackhelicopterradio.com. And today I have a very special guest, Mr. Jason Bermas, who needs no introduction, really. If you have even a remote interest in anything regarding the 9/11 truth,
there is a move towards world government, and this is not a benevolent world government. It is a consolidation of power by the elitists of this world to literally put the majority of the populace into slavery. And I know for some people that is very hard to accept, or they just can't come around to it. But I really feel like, with this generation, we don't read that much. Movies can do the job. And I have seen skeptics watch this film and change their minds tremendously.